Hey, welcome back. We are getting down to basics today. We're going to do something a little bit differently than we usually do. A few weeks ago, I had posted a couple of meal prep videos, a part 1 and a part 2. And in one of those videos, I'd said, hey, I browned off my ground beef. I'm not going to walk you through that. Pretty much everyone already knows that. And I got a couple comments with questions and a couple messages as well. It's easy to forget that not everyone was just raised in a kitchen. And so today we're going to go over ground beef and how to store it, whether that's in the refrigerator or the freezer. I've got my pan heating up right now and we're gonna go ahead and get into it. All right, so the things you are going to need for this, we've got a pound of ground beef. I've gone ahead and measured that up. We are going to use that to make lasagna a little bit later today. I have got this sieve, but any of them that you have, or if you just have to press your meat against like the side of your pan to get the grease out, that's fine. I have it draining into this bowl. And then I've got this offset nylon spatula. This is my favorite. I know a lot of people use a wooden spoon. Wood is porous, and meat, as it ages, does have bacteria in it, and so I don't like using wood with meat. You'll need to pull your meat just a couple minutes before you're ready to put it in so that it starts to get kind of up to room temperature. So we're just going to put that in there. You should notice most of it is a nice pink color. If you do see some like this where there's a little bit of brown, as long as it smells good, it doesn't smell thick, you should be fine. So we're going to go ahead and break that up. I do usually cook over a medium-high to high just because this is a glass top. It's not my preference, but it's what I've got right now. And it does take a little while to heat up. So just to hurry things along, I do usually cook on high. So we've got all that broken up. Now that it's broken up out of that one big kind of spot, we're just going to let it sit for a couple minutes. And what that's going to do is get a nice crust on the bottom of it. As we notice things are cooking from the bottom up, we'll go ahead and flip everything over. Now you'll notice you're already seeing all of this liquid. This ground beef is 93.7. When I'm putting meat into a casserole or for tacos, I like to use the leaner meat, and this is the reason. The fattier the meat, the more the meat itself shrinks down and you're left with more of that grease and water. And I don't like it. Now I know on a burger, like an 80-20 or an 85-15 is good. This is a 93.7 just because we are using it inside of something. So now we've got that one side pretty much browned up, and you'll notice it is starting to cook, but there's still a lot of this pink. And something else, if you're not too sensitive to heat, you can feel it kind of pushes back when you squeeze it. This pink stuff does not. It's squishy gushy. So if you can't tell the difference with the color, and you can't always, pay attention to the texture or even how your utensil pushes against it and how it pushes back. Our next step is to go ahead and strain that. So all we're doing is getting the grease out so it's not watery and greasy inside whatever you're putting that meat into. All right, guys, so a pound of ground beef does not take very long. We are good to go. We're gonna go ahead and get that switched off. And I am going to go ahead and move it into my strainer. So I'll move that here where you can see it. All right, now this pan is heavy just because this one is an enamel cast, and unfortunately it is pretty warm as well. So for starters, I'm just gonna go ahead and scoop it in there. And then as it gets a little lighter, I'll be able to pick it up. And so thankfully with the 93.7 breakdown on the ground beef, it is leaner. You don't see a lot of that grease sitting here, but I will show you there is some in there for sure. So now we're done with our big pan. And you'll see we've already got grease in there, right? And so you don't want to eat that. So we're just going to push our utensil against the strainer just to see how much more grease we can get out of there. And I know it doesn't look like a lot of grease, you guys. So this is what what is finished. It's definitely some, it's not a whole lot. What I do want to remind you of is as this cools off, it will harden. I know that when grease cools off, or sometimes even before some people do toss it down the drain. I would caution you not to do that. And the reason is, if you noticed when we got that ground beef out of the tray, it was all solid, right? There wasn't grease anywhere that you could see that was liquid form. As it cools, it's gonna go back to that solid form. And so when you pour it down your drains, you run the risk, and it's pretty likely for those drains to clog up. Now, if you own your home, we definitely don't want to pay for repairs. If you rent your home, you still don't want to be inconvenienced by not having a functioning sink for a while, or toilets, or, you know, all your waterways are sort of connected in a home. You just don't want to cause yourself problems or heartache or the inability to use the sinks. So you've got a couple options with ground beef or with that grease. We take the grease that's in the bowl and we actually use a funnel and pour it into a jar. Once that jar is full, we just put the lid back on it. When we're done with it, put it under the sink. When we're finished with that jar, it goes in the trash. Or when I put this grease into a bowl, if instead you'll line that bowl with aluminum foil, you can pour your grease into it, and when it cools, close the foil and put it in the trash, and that'll keep it from seeping out. And that way, if you've got a tear in your bag, you don't end up with grease all over your floor, because some of that is water as well. And so if it's water, it's gonna stay liquid, and you don't need that mess, right? Life is messy enough. We want to avoid the mess if we can handle it. All right, our ground beef is cooling off. Let's talk about storage for a moment while I've got that cooling. If you're going to use it immediately, go ahead and get it on the table. Put it in whatever you need it to be in and get it on the table. If you're not using that meat immediately, after it gets to room temperature, it does need to go into the refrigerator. If you're not using it within the first week, or you know you want it in the freezer, and ground beef cooked does freeze well and thaw well. All right, guys, so the first thing I wanted to show you is how to store this in a Ziploc bag, whether it's going in the refrigerator or the freezer. So go ahead and get just a good quality Ziploc bag. You don't have to worry about tearing. This is the one I'm going to use today, and do write on it. So what you're gonna write, because once it goes in the freezer, sometimes it does tend to all look the same, is what it is you're putting in. I'm putting ground beef 93.7. And then also noting that this is cooked and the date. So typically meats are good for 6 months to a year in the freezer. Like I said before, probably only about a week in the refrigerator, if that. If you're not that comfortable, then yeah. I mean, and likely it won't last that long. And so we are just going to go ahead and get that put inside of this Ziploc bag. And whatever way you've got to get it there is perfect, whether you're using a funnel or if you tip your bowl up. I just have two hands, and so until it was pretty empty, I didn't really want to take the risk of having that ground beef end up everywhere else. Make sure that you're sealed, and as you get to the end there, make sure that you've pushed all of the air out. Now, what I like to do is go ahead and push it into kind of a flatter package. And the reason is it takes less time to freeze and less time to thaw. And so that's it. We've got it just like that. If you're using a container, you're just going to put it right in there. But like I said, do make sure that you let that get down closer to room temperature. You do not want to put hot things into plastic either way. All right, guys, so that's how to cook ground beef, how to drain it, the importance of draining that grease and not down the sink, and then our storage options, whether that's going in the refrigerator or the freezer. If this video helped you and if you liked it, please hit the subscribe button down below and ring the bell for notifications so that you know when the next video is out. And guys, if you'd give this video a like, I would so appreciate it. I'm trying to grow my channel. I'm just a little bitty guy right now, but not for long. I will see you guys later this week.